Hi, I'm Peter Boyles. Of course, Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock right down the hall. I do the morning show on 710 KNUS, and of course, recently been filling in for an awful lot of guys taking time off, and it's been really a lot of fun. This show was invented by Mark Crowley and Brian Taylor and Kelly Michaels, and interestingly enough, given who's sitting with us this morning, I dubbed this show The Shoot. And a shoot is a term that comes from professional wrestling where everything is a work. A work meaning these guys pretty much know what's going on. They know the finish. They don't know necessarily the middle parts of the matches, but they certainly know the outcome. That's called working. Every once in a while, something goes wrong and it becomes real, and that gets dubbed The Shoot. This is Matt Yaden, who I just love to death. He's been wonderful to my family. He is a professional wrestler, runs a professional wrestling school, but much more than that, he's almost an intellectual when it comes to how much we love pro wrestling. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me back.
You look good, man.
Thank you.
You really look good. And you bought a new motorcycle.
I did, yes.
That's important.
Yes, very important.
That's very important. Let's begin. When you were a kid growing up, and we were talking about shoots and works and what becomes known as kayfabe, breaking the truth, there's a legendary wrestler by the name of Al Snow, and I've gotten to know Al because of you, and wonderful storyteller and just a great wrestler. When he talked about the truth about pro wrestling, tell that story.
Well, he just basically broke it down in the sense of, you know, what did your, I'm trying to think exactly how he put it, but he'll try to kind of get to why people think. He'll talk about now they know, they didn't know then. Now they know, they didn't know then. And he'll say they've known for 100 years. Yeah. They've always known. He said what did your parents say to you when you wanted to get into it? And what did your grandparents say to you when you wanted to get into it? It's like, why do you want to do that fake stuff? Like they were calling it back then. Yeah. So it wasn't really, I think, a big revelation that people think it was. It was just a kind of admission at a time that makes people think that, oh yeah, well now the cat's out of the bag, whereas everybody didn't know. It's what was different was there was a mission to protect it and not just tell everybody what was going on. Just like a magician doesn't tell you how they do their tricks. Yeah. Otherwise, it doesn't really hold the same weight. So just talking to him about the excuse of, well, everybody knows now, so therefore it's not important to try to still
protect. And that really happened because of a lawsuit, right?
I do believe so, yes. And then, but that didn't change what we were doing. That didn't change the mission. That didn't change the objective. So I just think and he'd be able to tell you better than I could, but I believe it's kind of used as an excuse or as a reason not to try and not to sell it the way it used to be sold. And everybody's always known what it is. It was sold differently. The protecting of the business itself was taken a lot more seriously.
Yeah, and I we were talking about it with my boss Kelly Michaels, and we were sitting talking about it when you were coming up to do the show, and we all can tell you, and I think anybody watching this right now, who was their favorite pro wrestler when they were a kid, who was the heel they hated, where did they watch it on, who did they watch it with, and we talked about it when we were kids. Now, it wasn't like talking about the Pirates or talking about Rocky Marciano, but we sure as hell talked about Bruno Sammartino in the same. For those who don't know, the legend Bruno Sammartino was a great professional wrestler. Grew up in Pittsburgh, was the Pittsburgh Strong Boy initially, but we loved Bruno, and as much as we loved Rocky, probably more than we loved Rocky or the Pirates or the Steelers, was Bruno. And we thought, I personally thought it was real it's still real.
It's funny because when we talk about, again, it's who always knew, and when we were kids, for instance, you were.
Who'd you grow up on?
I was a Macho Man fan. I loved the Macho Man.
All right.
And I remember nobody in my family really watched it.
Yeah.
I didn't really fall in love with professional wrestling until my high school years, till my later teens.
Yeah.
But I remember, distinctly remember, this is early 90s when we lived in Washington State, standing on a cul-de-sac at a friend's house, and I remember the neighbors talking about pro wrestling and kind of having the is it real discussion.
Yeah.
And it's just a memory that I have. Well, I think some of it's real, and like that discussion back and forth. And you've heard that all the time, where it's like, oh, well, I think some of it might be real, but even though everybody knew what was going on, they were still trying to figure out because they didn't know, because we didn't just tell them everything.
Oh, yeah.
And it kept the magic alive, and it kept the mystery alive, and that's a lot more fun.
But there was a barrier. There was a line between the marks, and that's what they called them. They don't call you a fan. First time I heard the term that somebody was marking. Explain marking.
So, and again, I don't want to mess this up, but it's an old carny term that comes from the carnival barkers that would put a mark on somebody that they were able to work.
Yeah.
Yep.
Put shock marks on their back.
So that's just basically we're selling. In the carnival days, they were selling something nearly impossible to you. They were selling the chance you could win this.
Yeah.
So we were selling that this was real. We're selling that these two have beef. We're selling whatever it is that we're trying to sell. And that, back to the original, question you'd asked me about what Al Snow was saying. And everybody's always known that. And everybody's always known if you went to a carnival game that the odds are stacked against you. But hey, this guy's going to keep trying because we all believe we can do it, right?
Yes.
So in wrestling, that's where that term comes from, is just somebody that can be worked, or at least not even that they can be worked, because again, the fans know, but they want to believe. That's the biggest thing, is they want to
and I
believe.
think that's the greatest part of a lot of different things, in politics and religion, and I can give you a list, but people mark. And also the term I've read comes from gypsies traveling in Europe on trees would put a mark that you'd get a meal out of this family, or these guys are easily swayed into doing something. And so that was the mark. Or you're right, the other one was on the back. I've read that they take a piece of chalk, pat you on the back that you're a friend, but they're marking you. And you became a mark. So the first time I heard professional wrestlers talk about the marks, and we were always said when we did television, wrestling, we would always be with, good evening, wrestling fans, F-A-N, and the guys behind you are saying, what? He's marking. So you marked for, again, going back, you were, when you're a fan, then you mark for somebody, right? And again, back to your young manhood, who'd you mark for?
For me, like I said, it was Macho Man, Randy Savage. I didn't watch a lot of wrestling. Like you said, nobody in my family. One of my first memories of pro wrestling is sitting on a chair in the basement. I was watching TV, and I think I was flipping the channels, but I think I still had to get up and turn the dial. I was pretty young, but I remember stopping on a match, two masked guys. It was a tag match, one in a rear chin lock, and arms just kind of hanging out here. And I distinctly remember my dad going, "Why are you watching this fake stuff?
Turn it off."
Yeah. So you know, and I just said, it's not real." And Dad's like, "No."
Yeah.
And okay, didn't think anything of it, but fast forward a little bit. Macho Man is on Arsenio Hall, and then you got Slim Jims, and you got things like that. So he reached out to me in a way that I think people miss at what pro wrestling is supposed to be, where it wasn't the matches that was making me like him. It was who he was, and the pomp and circumstance and everything. So that was, even not being a wrestling fan really as a kid, I loved the Macho Man, which meant he transcended
the great story, and it's been chronicled a number of times, was this young fighter, Cassius Marcellus Clay, goes to Vegas. He's won the Olympics. He's got the medal. And he's turned pro, and there's a conglomerate that is bought in to run his life in Louisville. And the same thing's going on with Joe Frazier. And so he goes to Vegas, and he's doing an interview. And the interview, I think, before him was Gorgeous George. And he looked at the gate. He won his fight, but he looked at the gate numbers the next day, and he realized that George had 5-timed him. You know, and that's, according to most historians, is when Cassius Clay became the Louisville Lip, became mouthy, and became what was he doing? He was knocking off Gorgeous George. And even now today in the UFC, and I'm a big UFC fan, now it's begun the same kinds of stuff. And in sports, I mean, you see it, you know, and in football, some player will come out and say, what we're going to do to those guys on Sunday. Where'd that come from?
Right, exactly.
It came.
And that's professional wrestling, and it's. Yeah. I heard somebody say it might have been Al actually saying, yeah, well, everybody craps on pro wrestling, but everybody steals from it.
And I say it all the time. Everything I learned about talk radio, I learned working with Vern and working with Bobby, and you know, that kind of stuff. To watch them, heels and faces. The whole world's divided up into heels and faces.
Yes, it absolutely is.
No, it truly is. So when's the first time you actually got in?
So I met some gentlemen. I was a senior in high school. It was around February of 1999, and I met some guys at the Richland Mall in Ontario, Ohio. And I worked at a Metabolife stand, the diet pills, and there was a beanie. It was called the Beanie Wagon. It was a Beanie Baby stand, and they were into the backyard wrestling thing. And we became friends, and they asked if I liked wrestling. I was like, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
And
because you're a big kid.
And they were like, "Do you wrestle?" I was like, "I did." The season was over, and they said, "Well, you should come out. We wrestle in our living room." I was like, "How does that work?" I was like, "You should come over sometime." So started hanging out with these guys. They were called NRW, which is where I got the name from when I started the company in 2010 before we changed the name to Rocky Mountain Pro, and started hanging out with them and found that I had more of an interest in this pro wrestling thing than I initially thought, and started doing it. Not advising anybody does the backyard wrestling thing, but that's just what it is. And then in 2001, a local wrestler by the name of Jay Kilgore came around, saw us at one of our little shows we were doing, because we were trying to train ourselves, and he trained us for 6 months and kind of got our footing right, and did it the right way. And so 01 is really when I started actually doing the professional wrestling thing and trying to hit the indies. And then I moved out here in 03 and started the company in 2010. And
their shows are great. I've been to numbers of them, and the people who attend are red hot. I mean, they all know their role. They know, nothing like locals, and they mark hard. And you've now developed heels and faces, and you've done a wonderful job. And it's kind of like, I don't know, have you seen this television series called, and it's about the two brothers, and they're running a small promotion. It's called Heels.
I haven't seen it. I know of it. I haven't seen it yet. Pretty good.
I mean, and then the dark side of the ring. And so for people like guys like me that love that business, you can get a backdoor look at it. And is wrestling, I think I know my own answer, professional wrestling today, given all the different platforms and cable and satellite, way more popular than when I was a kid or when you were a kid?
I think it's reaches more people with all of the different options, and as far as it being more popular, without really diving into ratings, there's the ratings discussions and arguments. Our friend Vince Russo will talk about that when he talks about it, how much higher the ratings were when he was there in the late 90s, early 2000s. So in comparison, I don't really know the best way to compare that. I think WWE is making more. I think their annual revenue is higher than it's ever been with all the different options. So I think it reaches more people worldwide than it used to. As far as that appointment viewing, I don't know if it's quite the same as it was, because in the night, they're doing, I think combined, you'd have like WCW doing, a rating of high 4 to low 5, and WWF was doing that too. So combined, they were doing 10 to 12 million.
But like you were saying, Hulk Hogan would go on the Tonight Show, or Macho Man would go on with Arsenio Hall. That's the shows that I remember. So the mainstream realized what was taking place and started engulfing these guys and men and women and
Right.
bringing them in. And although some of this outcome lately on Vince McMahon, the guy, frankly, was a genius or is a genius, but he's got that real dark side too.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have that dark side. It's just what comes to light, and the type of personality and the type of person you have to be.
I was going to ask you that.
To do what a Vince McMahon or anybody that's running a wrestling company, especially at that level, has to do. I think it's something that's easy to judge and easy to really take shots at, but you just go, man, it takes a special personality to be able to do what he did at the time he did it, and then to continue it for as long as he did. And so, it's,
and they have that game plan, and he put everybody else really out of business.
It's pretty remarkable what they were able to do in really nationalizing professional wrestling
worldwide. They want the Saudi Arabian shows now. Well, they're going to the Middle East.
Yeah. So it takes a vision that most people don't have to spearhead that.
You know, I say these people show up every once in a while, and I guess it's a comparison, maybe not an analysis, but everybody thought one way until Einstein. Everybody thought one way, Thomas Jefferson, or thought one way until Picasso. And and you can look at these, and I'm not making Vince that guy, but I'm saying that he really did see it differently, and he changed the course. And people made, if what I read is true, guys made a lot of money. They did.
Absolutely made a lot of money.
Yeah. Now, is that still hold up?
I don't know. I don't know in comparison. I don't think the contracts are like they were like when you look at the mid to late 90s.
What was Hogan making at the top?
I don't. A number that I'll never see.
Yeah.
Like
either one of us combined.
But there's a lot of opportunity out there now that I don't think was there 20, 30 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Is it as lucrative? I don't think it is, but it's just different. Like there's contracts are different, distribution is different, the amount of positions. I do believe that there's and again, someone could correct me on this, but I think there's more opportunities, but with more opportunities, there might be less opportunity for those big payouts than there used to be.
Now, with running the school and running all the different matches, the interest is just as high as it was?
Yeah, and we finally, I was just talking to somebody yesterday about this, a gentleman that used to be a personal training client of mine back in like 2008, 2009, that I hadn't seen in forever. And he was asking me about it. And I was like, COVID almost killed us, but we survived it.
Almost killed a lot of people, yeah.
The few years since, I think we're finally hitting that.
Coming back.
That point. We were standing there last night. I was standing with one of my blue shirt students. We have a shirt ranking system at the school. Blue shirt is like the third level. And I was standing there with him, and a lot of white shirts. And there's about 6 new people in there. And he had mentioned, man, it's nice to see a lot of these white shirts coming in here. And the school's finally growing at that pace we were growing at. Back, our big boom was 2014 when we started. It was a pretty good first year. 2016 when we moved to Grudge in Arvada at the fairgrounds when we were out there. About 2018, 19, we were really hitting our stride. I think we're starting to see that again. More people are reaching out, feeling comfortable.
If somebody, Matt Yaden's here, who I just think the world of. So somebody wants to learn and wants to go to school and to learn to wrestle. All right. rmpwrestling.com/train. It's the Al Snow Wrestling Academy. Rocky Mountain. Al Snow, as you know, is my mentor, and he had asked if we wanted to join his affiliation of schools, and I of course said yes. So we are the training center for the promotion, which is Rocky Mountain Pro. We do over 100 events a year, so when you train with us, you get an opportunity not just to train, but you're going to get in front of the cameras, you're going to be on a couple television shows, you're going to get some live event experience. So we kind of do it all there. And it's one of those, and in many ways I think it perhaps rivals, although the physical part of it, but it's like getting into the radio business. Everybody seems to want to, but who has the ability, the talent to take the next step? And plenty of guys, and you see I thought the movie The Wrestler I thought was really an important film because it was so many different things you could see in that. That was really about Jake Roberts, was it not?
I do believe it had a lot of inspiration from the story.
And they called him Randy the Ram, but you could see when he was doing this small town show, there's all these guys sitting in there, but they're pro wrestlers. What was their payday? $50, $75. Here's your money. But they got to live their dream.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think that I've been to a number of Matt shows, and you do that. I mean, it's really hot and it's fun.
It's a good time, and and like you said, getting the chance to live the dream is more valuable than any payout you can get. And you want to get to that point where you can support yourself with it, which is very hard to do. There's very limited spots. We talked about there's more than there might have used to be, but it's still not a lot. Like it's really tough to make a full-time living in this, and we try to prepare people the best that we can. And if they're going to stay here or they're going to stay local, which most people end up doing, or they travel around and they hit the indies, I want this place to be something where they can still live that dream, and as many eyeballs can see them, and they can be on television. And that's the big thing is we want to be on TV.
When I was indirectly and directly working for Vince, when they would drop their hands and say, I'm home 2 nights a month or 3 nights a month, and I go back out again and back out again, and leaving Christmas Eve afternoon to go someplace for a Christmas show. And you had to want it.
Oh yeah.
And you had to want to do it.
Yeah. Again, even we talked about Vince McMahon and the special type of personality it takes to lead that and run that. It takes a special personality to want to go out there and do it and put your body on the line all the time and entertain and be away on those important dates.
The next matches, when are they?
So we do a lot. Every Thursday night we're at the Wimmer Arena, which is our building. Yeah. So any Thursday night at 6:30 you want to come down, you can do it. And again, rmpwrestling.com, and then RMP Wrestling on the social medias. We put everything up. The next big one we have it October 5th. It's Thursday, October 5th. That's Shocktober. That's our Halloween event. D'Lo Brown is out every month now.
When D'Lo comes, I want to bring him in here or take him to the radio side.
Absolutely, we absolutely can. Yeah. He's here usually once a month. He's on our commentary team now, so you'll hear if you go watch our episodes on Right Now TV, YouTube, and Rumble. You'll hear D'Lo Brown's voice on there. So every Tuesday night at 6 we hear those. Absolutely, and he's a phenomenal guy. And we talk about living the dream and someone that cares. Like, he wants to help people live their dream, and he comes out and he helps us more than we deserve. I mean, he really, really believes in this place and how special it is, and he comes out and puts a lot into it. So he'll be in town.
We'll get him
on the 5th, and then the 6th we'll be taping from Bierstadt Lagerhaus in Denver.
Bring him in here, or we'll take him down the hall.
Absolutely.
Do it again real quick on time. The website for the school, and then the next couple matches.
Website for the school, rmpwrestling.com/train, or if you just click train on the website, you'll find it. Social medias, Instagram, I guess it's called X now, and Facebook are all RMP Wrestling. And find us on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and Rumble, and you can keep up with everything.
It's good.
Great to see you again.
You too. You look great.
It's been too long.
Yeah, it has been.
Let's do it again.
Good man, and school's a great fun thing to do. Matt Yaden. Saturday morning, right down the hall, 9 a.m., Talk Radio, we go at it again. I'm Peter Boyles. Thanks to Mark Crowley and to Brian Taylor and to Kelly Michaels and to Matt Yaden. I'll see you next time on The Shoot. Thanks for watching.